Hello and welcome. It's Thursday, the 27th of March. You're tuned in to our 10 a.m. newscast here on ARIRANG TV. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. Meeting German Chancellor Angela Merkel in Berlin, President Park Geun-hye says the two countries have agreed to share the German unification experience. Merkel says Germany will support the two Koreas' efforts to reunite. The United States is in talks with the other members of the UN Security Council over ways to punish North Korea after the regime fired 2 ballistic missiles capable of hitting South Korea and Japan. Plus, South Korea's new main opposition party, the New Politics Alliance for Democracy, officially launches, combining the Democratic Party and supporters of independent lawmaker Ahn Cheol-soo. Our top story this morning, President Park Geun-hye, who's been campaigning for reunification of the two Koreas in Germany this week, has secured the full support of Berlin based on Germany's own unification experience. Our correspondent Choi You-sun reports on President Park's meeting with German Chancellor Angela Merkel.
At a joint press conference, Chancellor Merkel said Germany, which has gone through unification itself, is responsible for supporting the two Koreas' will to reunite. And President Park and the German Chancellor agreed to set up a cooperative system to prepare the Korean peninsula for social and economic unity.
독일이 갖고 있는 통일에 대한 어떤 경험, 또 지식 이런 것을 참고로 해서 우리 한반도에서도 평화 통일을 이루기 위해서 어떤 준비를 해야 할까 하는 것을 여러 가지로 구체화해 나가고자 합니다.
When asked about President Park's recent description of reunification on the Korean peninsula as a bonanza, Merkel said Germany's unification was indeed a bonanza. Coming from the communist East herself, Merkel said she witnessed the lives of more than 17 million East Germans change for the better after the fall of the Berlin Wall.
A lot of economic support will be necessary in connection with a reunification. The second thing is that people should be prepared to get to know very different biographies.
President Park also garnered Merkel's support behind her trust-building policies towards North Korea, at the same time urging Pyongyang to give up its nuclear weapons. On the economic front, the two leaders agreed to expand cooperation between the two sides' small and mid-sized firms in vocational training and science and technology. Earlier in the day, President Park visited the Brandenburg Gate, a landmark in Berlin, symbolic of German unification. Behind me is the Brandenburg Gate, which President Park visited earlier on this Wednesday. She'll continue with her reunification campaign here in Germany this week by meeting with former officials who are at the center of German unification and by laying out her reunification policies during a speech in Dresden. Choi You-sun, ARIRANG News, Berlin.
The United States has called an urgent UN security meeting to talk about ways to punish North Korea for its latest ballistic missile firings. US Congress will also consider North Korean sanctions legislation in May. Hwang Ji-ae has the details.
The UN Security Council will hold discussions Thursday on ways to punish North Korea for its latest ballistic missile launches. The request for a special meeting came from the United States after Pyongyang test-fired 2 medium-range Nodong ballistic missiles into the EC. On Wednesday, Deputy U.S. State Department spokeswoman Marie Harf said Washington is already in talks with other members of the UN Security Council and its allies and partners to take appropriate measures against the North for its latest provocation. She went on to emphasize the U.S. takes Pyongyang's latest military posturing seriously since it clearly violates UN Security Council resolutions banning the nation from any ballistic missile launches. In a related move, U.S. Congress will also consider North Korea sanctions legislation in May. Representative Ed Royce, chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, unveiled the schedule as he addressed a congressional hearing on North Korea's human rights abuses. Royce said his committee will do all it can to hold the North Korean leader and his aides responsible for crimes against humanity. Meanwhile, China has also expressed concern about escalating tensions on the Korean peninsula, saying it wants all related parties to work together to ensure regional peace and stability. Hwang Jie, ARIRANG News.
Now, another thoughtless remark has been uttered by a Japanese politician that's sure to anger many here in Korea. On Wednesday, co-leader of the opposition Japan Restoration Party, Shintaro Ishihara, said his country's colonial rule of the Korean peninsula in the early to mid-1900s was necessary to defend itself against the Soviet Union's advance into Asia. Ishihara, known for his hawkish views, went on to say the bilateral relationship between Seoul and Tokyo is more important to Korea than it is to Japan. He also expressed doubts about the benefits of the improving relationship between Korea and China. Ishihara's remarks followed the first official meeting of the current leaders from Korea and Japan earlier this week in the Netherlands. Now, a special exhibition was held in front of the Japanese embassy in Seoul on Wednesday to raise awareness of Japan's wartime atrocities. Our Ji Myung-gil filed this report, and just a word of warning, some of the photos shown in this report are quite disturbing.
No colors, no words, just black and white photos that show the horrific scenes from Japan's past invasions of Korea and China. Ruling Saenuri Party lawmaker Kim Il-dong hosted a photo event Wednesday as a protest against Japan's unapologetic attitude towards its past wrongdoings.
We decided to hold this photo exhibition to let the world know about the atrocities Japan committed during World War II. We must never forget the cruelty and pain that our ancestors had to endure due to the Japanese imperialists.
The images are startling. Japanese soldiers mass murdering innocent civilians during the Nanjing massacre in China, simply to learn how it feels to kill on the battlefields. Women who are raped, brutally tortured, and eventually killed with sword bayonets. Japanese scientists conducting surgical procedures without anesthesia on prisoners of war after infecting them with various diseases. The photos clearly show the atrocities that were committed by Japanese soldiers during World War II. This exhibition will be recorded and uploaded onto YouTube in 10 different languages. On the other side of the street, two former Korean comfort women rallied along with their supporters to demand that the Japanese government apologize for victimizing them and tens of thousands of others.
It's really agonizing. We've been holding this rally every Wednesday for 20 years, and still the Japanese government hasn't made an apology or provided compensation. They think everything will be solved if they keep quiet.
Historians say up to 200,000 women, mostly from Korea but also from China, Indonesia, the Philippines, and Taiwan, were forced to serve as sex slaves in the Japanese army brothels during the Second World War. Despite mounting evidence, a minority of right-wing Japanese citizens insist the state and military were not responsible and claim the women were common prostitutes. Ji Myung-gil, ARIRANG News.
Now, Korea has a new opposition coalition party dubbed the New Politics Alliance for Democracy. The launch is sure to shake up the domestic political scene as we draw ever closer to the local elections in June. Our Kwon So-ah reports.
It's an historic moment for the new political party. The New Politics Alliance for Democracy held its official inauguration ceremony Wednesday afternoon, with hopes of bringing about a new era of politics based on trust and hope.
After 60 years of being the Democratic Party, we have joined with lawmaker Ahn Cheol-soo and are now reborn as the New Politics Alliance for Democracy.
Over 250 delegates, including lawmakers, officials, war veterans, and thousands of citizens from all walks of life, attended the event in southern Seoul's Olympic Stadium. Attendees paid tribute to the 46 victims that died when the warship Cheonan was sunk 4 years ago and commemorated the 104th anniversary of the death of independence fighter An Jung-geun prior to the main event. The new coalition will be jointly headed by Democratic Party Representative Kim Han-gil and independent lawmaker An Chol-soo for 1 year until it elects a party chairman and leadership next year. They completed legal measures for dissolving their previous parties and will now register as a new one with the National Election Commission. The New Politics Alliance for Democracy will hold 130 seats at the National Assembly, with a vast majority of them being members of the former Democratic Party. The ruling Saenuri Party currently has 156 seats in the parliament. The alliance adopted its platforms at the ceremony, which include a focus on forming a just society and maintaining peace.
If our party and the Saenuri Party can find a smart way to go about it, strong security and better inter-Korean relations can coexist. We can also foster public welfare and promote democracy together. Progressive or conservative, that's not what's significant. The people's livelihoods are.
Now that the New Politics Alliance for Democracy has officially been launched, the party will focus on garnering more support from the general public ahead of the June 4th local elections. Kwon-soa, ARIRANG News.
The number of childbirths in Korea dropped significantly in January, in fact to an 8-year low. Statistics Korea said Wednesday that about 41,000 babies were born in January. That's down more than 6% from a year earlier. It also marks the 13th straight month of decline. The agency attributes the downward trend to more young couples holding off on getting married and more newlyweds waiting to have children, largely because of soaring housing prices. Korea's fertility rate was 1.2 per woman in the last 5 years. That's the 4th lowest in the world, according to UN data. Now, for a look at some of the international headlines we're following at this hour, we're going to join our Eunice Kim, who's standing by at the news centre, Good morning, Eunice. Now, it seems more sanctions could be in store for Russia as US President Obama and EU leaders are continuing to put on this united front against Vladimir Putin.
Hi, Mark. That's right. President Barack Obama, in a keynote address earlier this morning, said Russian President Vladimir Putin had miscalculated had he counted on indifference from the West over Russia's annexation of the Crimea. Earlier, he held summit talks with EU leaders at their headquarters in Brussels, where they discussed further and deeper sanctions should Russia take steps to claim more portions of Ukraine. President Obama also called on EU nations to ease their reliance on Russian energy. About a quarter of Europe's gas comes from Russia, and a third of that through Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russian forces captured the last Ukrainian Navy ship in Crimea Wednesday, and a mass of about 30,000 Russian troops are said to be at the border regions with eastern Ukraine. President Obama said NATO forces will support Ukraine's defense. He did add, though, there will be no military response to Russia's incursion and that a door to diplomacy would be left open. A team of vessels from 6 nations, including Korea, have re-embarked upon their search for traces of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, which has now been missing for 19 days. Searchers resumed their probe as new satellite images from the French have emerged. They show 122 potential objects in a 400 square kilometer area of the southern Indian Ocean, their sizes varying from 1 meter to 23 meters. The images were taken on Monday. The recovery mission faces time restrictions as the batteries of the black boxes are expected to run out soon. Malaysian authorities have said the U.S., quote, towed Pinger location is set to arrive in the search area by the end of next week. In one of the most watched cases related to the 9/11 terrorist attacks, the son-in-law of Osama bin Laden has been found guilty of terrorism-related charges in a New York civilian court. 48-year-old Suleiman Abu Ghaith was facing charges of acting as an al-Qaeda mouthpiece and using video to recruit new fighters. He was convicted of conspiring to kill Americans and provide material support to terrorists, among others. It took jurors a little more than a day to reach the verdict. The Muslim cleric faces life in prison. Sentencing is scheduled for September 8th. An Ankara court has ordered the Turkish Telecommunications Authority to lift a ban on Twitter, saying the government did not have grounds for the ban. This comes as the Tayyip Erdogan government had blocked users to the popular social media platform. Users had spread leaked recordings reflecting widespread corruption of government officials, including the Prime Minister's son. Prime Minister Erdogan said the recordings were fake and created by his critics. Twitter, which had itself filed a challenge to the ban, welcomed the news. The Telecommunication Authority has 30 days to honor or appeal the ruling.
Said that a team of South Korea.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. ARIRANG News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers 15 billion. Korean cars accounted for nearly 9% of the Chinese auto market last year. That's the highest level ever. Korea's auto giants like Hyundai Motor and Kia Motors have identified China as the next growth market and want to significantly boost their presence there. Song Ji-sun reports.
It's another busy day here at Pyeongtaek Port on Korea's west coast, about an hour drive from the capital, Seoul. Less than a week after these cars were transported from their factories, they're loaded here to prepare for their journeys over the world.
Shipments to China are made about twice a month on board the same vessel with other cars en route to the Middle East. Around 60 drivers who operate in groups load between 3,000 to 5,000 cars every 2 days onto this 35,000-ton car carrier, mostly overnight.
But not all Korean autos need to be shipped out. Nearly 2 million are produced in China each year, and that has helped to boost the market share of Korean automakers in China. Experts attribute the success to the right mix of marketing and price and launching vehicles specifically designed for the Chinese market. But challenges remain. Local government regulations in China is a concern, as is competition with American and European automakers who entered the Chinese market decades earlier.
In line with Beijing's policies aimed at lowering carbon emissions, Korean automakers must develop green energy cars and also focus on smaller developing cities in suburban areas to expand their target customers.
The Chinese auto market is expected to grow by 15% this year, and the demand is expected to reach 35 million cars by 2020. The goal of Korean automakers is a 10% share in the Chinese market, and to gain a better foothold, Hyundai Motors confirmed Wednesday that they will build their fourth local factory in China, and Kia Motors also has plans to construct its third local plant. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News, Pyeongtaek.
Now, a musical that took Korea by storm 2 years ago is back, and with some familiar faces and some new ones as well. The musical is about Korea's traditional singing style Pansori. Our cultural correspondent Park Geun-hye has the details.
This is one of the most beloved stories among the Korean people. Seopyeonje was originally a Korean novel published in the 1970s. It was later adapted into a successful film in the 90s, and then into Changguk, a modernized Pansori performance genre. And of course, it was also turned into a musical. First adapted into a musical in 2010, it won 5 musical awards and was put back on the stage in 2012. Now, musical Seopyeonje is back again after 2 years. It's being put on by the same staff, but with some new songs and new actors. Musical Seopyeonje centers on one of the most original plots of the novel, in which traveling Pansori artist Yu-bong blinds her daughter Songhwa to develop her singing talents. However different from the original plot, Musical's Hapyeonjae gives Songhwa's brother Dongho a new twist. In the most recent adaptation, he wants to become a rocker rather than a Pansori artist. Seasoned Broadway musical actor Michael Lee joins the cast to play Dongho.
At the core of the character of Dongho, he is somebody who is searching for his voice. This is something that all artists can relate to, that all actors, no matter what culture you're a part of, can relate to.
The musical presents diverse genres of music, from pansori and pop to rock music.
Pansori is a main theme of the musical. However, not all the music is from the Pansori genre. I paralleled other genres of music like pop and rock to make the Pansori stand out for its beauty.
K-pop group MBLAQ's Gio also joined the cast to play Dongho. Star Pansori singer Lee Ja-ram and famous musical singer Cha Ji-yeon have returned to the stage to reprise their past roles. The musical runs until May 11 at Universal Arts Center in Seoul. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off with the AFC Asian Cup final drawing, which took place earlier on Wednesday. With Korea seated in Pot 2, they hope to avoid the group of death. And what do you know, not a bad drawing for the Taeguk Warriors as they were drawn in Group A with Australia, Oman, and Kuwait. Of course, with the event taking place in Australia, Australia might have a slight home advantage, but with Korea ranked highest amongst the 4 nations, they should have no problem advancing to the next round. And shifting over to the World Figure Skating Championship, which began yesterday and will go on until the 30th in Japan. And with Kim Yeon-ha's retirement, Adelina Sotnikova not participating, the gold medal is up for grabs. Of course, with Russian gold medalist Adelina Sotnikova's decision not to participate in the event, Karolina Kostner of Italy and Gracie Gold of the United States look to be the favorites going into the women's single event. And without the figure queen, fans in Korea will have their eyes on the future of Korean figure skating, Park So-yeon and Kim Hae-jin. And an update on ex-Chicago Cubs pitcher In Chang-young, who agreed to a 1-year 500 million won or roughly $465,000 deal plus incentives with the Samsung Lions. He'll be filling the void left by Oh Seung-hwan as the closer for the defending champions. And of course, with that said, moving over to Game 3 of the semifinals between the LG Sakers and the KT Sonic Boom, with LG up 2-0. And going into the game here right off the bat, the LG Sakers off to a huge lead, taking a 28-18 lead in the first quarter before going into halftime with a comfortable 45-36 lead. But in the third quarter, KT starts rallying in the game, but that rally is cut short as Davon Jefferson explodes with 25 points and 13 rebounds as the LG Sakers head into their first championships in 13 years with a 96-82 win. And finishing things off with some Wednesday night's K-League Classic action, we have some scores here. FC Seoul beats Jeju United 2-0. Seongnam over Suwon 2-0 as well. Gyeongnam defeats Incheon United 1-0. Jeonnam upsets Ulsan 1-0 as well, with Busan and Sangju drawing 1-1. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors take on the Pohang Steelers. And going into the match here, right from the get-go, a foul is called in the penalty area as Jeonbuk's Kayo takes a spot kick here and scores as Jeonbuk goes up 1-0 after just 5 minutes. But the 23rd minute, Yoo Chang-hyun, that's an equalizer, and it's 1-1 after the first half. Of course, going into the second half of the match, 62nd minute, here's Lee Myung-ju. He's going to sneak this one past the goalkeeper. Pohang takes a 2-1 lead before Pohang seals the deal here in the 70th minute thanks to Kim Seung-dae, and that's your final score, 3-1 Pohang Steelers. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Well, dazzling spring sun will shine down on us all day long, which will make us feel a bit warmer than the actual numbers, but please note the level of dust particles could be slightly higher in the upper parts of the peninsula today. And it's going to be warmer than yesterday across the entire nation. Temperatures in most regions will hover 20 degrees Celsius in the afternoon, and daytime highs in Daegu will soar to 25, making it feel more like May than March. And it looks like we'll enjoy another warm day tomorrow, but nationwide rain is expected to sweep the nation on Saturday, which will bring down the temperatures a few notches down. But it looks like we're going to have higher temperatures during the weekend, so please take the weather into account and plan accordingly for your weekend. With that in mind, here are the readings for today. The afternoon high in Seoul will jump up to 21, and Daegu and Gwangju should top out at 25 and 22 respectively, while Busan should get up to 21 under plenty of sunshine. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like down on Jeju and Daejeon will peak to 18 and 22, while Tokdo and Gyeonggang will soar to 15. Well, that's all from me at this hour, and hope you have a wonderful day.
And that's all for now. We'll be back at noon Korea time. In the meantime, you can always catch up with what's been happening on our website, arirang.co.kr/news.